There are a couple key steps to help with that. One is, and some of this I've learned from you, and you should jump on in with your wonderful suggestions. But one is to challenge the anxiety that you're feeling. Ask your superiors, your coworkers for a performance evaluation. If you aren't performing where you need to be, well, they'll tell you. You'll know, and then you can start making changes. If you're inappropriately worrying about something you don't need to worry about, you'll also find out because you're doing the job you need to do.
Yeah, that's great.
The other thing is that mindset is really important. So flipping things from negative to positive and looking at that sort of half glass full idea. And that can be difficult to do. Cognitive-based therapy is one form of talk therapy, and other forms as well are really good for challenging that. And they can help you with questions like testing your thoughts in the moment and looking at, are you really in control of XYZ? If you can't control it, well, then just let it go. Don't worry about it. The other thing is, and if you do have control, well, then do what you need to do and get on with it. And the other thing is perfectionism is a big issue that can bring a lot of anxiety for people. And double checking that so that you are instead thinking, what's good enough? Because often good enough really is good enough, and it will help you keep moving along, getting through your day, being successful at multiple things as opposed to getting stuck on one.
You know what I love in what you said there is there's so many different ways that we can tackle that and helps with some reframing and readjusting. And in most cases, it involves just talking to another person. And what I love about that is it can be talk therapy, it can be a professional, but it could also be a colleague or a friend or your boss. I mean, there's a lot of outlets you can find, but have someone else help you with that reframing and in a healthy way challenge your thinking. So it doesn't have to be perfect, or you're maybe worrying about something that is really not as big of a deal as it feels like it is to you. And I think that's another important thing too. It's not that what you're feeling is wrong. It's just helping to reframe it, so it's not hurting you or costing you anything.
Exactly, and sometimes we get frozen in those feelings when actually there are concrete changes we can make. They feel overwhelming, but if we start talking, we can kind of get a 1, 2, 3, 4 action plan to tackle a problem. So at work, if you're overloaded, it may be a conversation to really look at what all the work you're doing. What are the true deadlines that need to be met, and what deadlines maybe can be postponed? And helping prioritize projects that you're working on to get those steps in place so that you achieve each milestone in a timely manner. And that reduces your stress load. You don't need to worry about the end goal of the full project, but rather getting to each step along the way, knowing that there's a reason for this project workflow.
It was something very interesting that I think you'd find fascinating. As I'm working with all these different teams and groups and organizations, one of the common workplace cultural norms that people used to do that they're not doing anymore is they don't go out to lunch with their coworkers anymore. They don't, because they're too busy, so they just sit and they eat by themselves or work by themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
And while it seems silly or trivial, those would have been moments to kind of reset your thinking, because you're sharing what's going on with someone else and they're giving you their perspective. So those natural rituals have kind of gotten stripped out of our working lives, leaving us more alone and leaving us more trusting our thinking, whether it's right or not. So maybe one of the antidotes is just maybe you should be going out to lunch a little bit more with your coworkers.
I completely agree. In fact, you've sort of taking away my end of the show life hack. But one of the interesting things that came up with the American Psychiatry Association's poll was that one of the groups, everybody's anxious. It was across the board. There was no group of people that were exempt. But millennials definitely had a higher level of feeling anxious. And there were a lot of theories about why this was happening. Nothing completely clear that we can hang our hat on. But loneliness is definitely a factor. More people live alone today than they did decades ago. And fewer people are involved in those community organizations like their church or their small town where everybody knows everybody. So they are more isolated. And so that makes lunch with your colleagues even that much more important.
Yeah.
The other thing was contrasting that with social media, where now that whole idea of FOMO, fear of missing out, you're constantly bombarded with images. Yeah, beautiful people leading happy lives. And it's easy to forget that this is all constructed. And this is all through a filter of, I'm not going to post, the ugly shot. And I'm not going to post when I was feeling, sad or tired. So it almost amplifies that sense of isolation.
Yeah.